Breaking news brought to you by the Cumberland County Emergency Radio Network. Normal broadcast facilities have been temporarily discontinued. Stay tuned to this wavelength for emergency information concerning the recent developments. Our live broadcasters will convey information as received from the Civil Defense Headquarters. We repeat, this is your Civil Defense Emergency Radio Network. Authorities strongly advise that any and all cell phones or portable devices that may interfere with the radio signal to be turned off for the duration of this state for your own safety. Initial reports of violence and death, and apparently deranged attacks on the lives of people taken completely off guard, inform us that a siege is being documented in the Midwestern section of the state and spreading across the nation. Medical and scientific advisors have been summoned to the White House. And reporters on the scene in Washington inform us that the president is planning to make public the results of that conference in an address to the nation over your Civil Defense Emergency Network. Beware of strange beings with disturbing behavior. Hysterical surviving witnesses have only been able to describe them as the living dead.
Because of the obvious threat to untold members of citizens, and because of the crisis which is even now developing, this station will remain on the air day and night. This station and hundreds of other radio and TV stations throughout this part of the country are pulling their resources through an emergency effort hookup to keep you informed of all developments. At this hour, we repeat, these are the facts as we know them. There is an epidemic of mass murder being committed by a virtual army of unidentified assassins.
The murders are taking place in villages, cities, royal homes, and suburbs with no apparent motive or reason for the slayings. It seems to be a sudden general explosion of mass homicide. We now have some descriptions of the assassins. Eyewitnesses say they are ordinary-looking people. Some say they appear to be in a kind of trance. Others describe them as being grotesque. So at this point, there is really no authentic way for us to say who or what to look for and guard yourself against.
Misshapen monsters. Reaction of law enforcement officials is one of the complete bewilderment at this hour. So far, we have been unable to determine that any kind of organized investigation is yet underway. Police, sheriff's deputies, and emergency ambulances are literally flooded with calls for help. The scene can be best described as mayhem. Mayors of Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, and Erie, along with the governors of certain eastern and midwestern states, indicate the National Guard may be mobilized at any moment. But this has not happened yet. The only other information that reporters have been able to obtain from official sources is a warning for all citizens to stay in their homes, behind locked doors. Do not venture outside for any reason until the nature of the crisis has been determined, and until we can advise what course of action to take. Keep listening to radio and television for any special instructions as the crisis develops further. Thousands of offices and factory workers are being urged to stay in their places of employment, not to make any attempt to get to their homes. However, in spite of this urging and warning, streets and highways are packed with frantic drivers attempting to get home. We repeat, the safest course of action at this time is simply to stay put wherever you are.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have just received word that the president has called a meeting of his cabinet to deal with the sudden epidemic third of his nation. The meeting is scheduled to convene within the hour. Members of the presidential cabinet will be joined by the officials of the FBI and the Joint Chiefs behind closed doors. White House spokesmen say that there will be an official announcement as soon as possible following that meeting. This is the latest dispatch that just received in our newsroom.
The latest word, also from National Press Services in Washington, D.C., now tells us that the Emergency Presidential Conference, which we just mentioned, will include high-ranking scientists from the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. All radio and television stations have joined their facilities in an emergency network to bring you this news as it develops. We urge you to stay tuned to radio and television and to stay indoors at all costs. Late reports reaching this newsroom tell us to advise citizens who are seeking shelter to report to local schools, churches, government buildings, and emergency facilities for refuge from the wholesale murders, which are apparently engulfing the eastern third of the nation. You're not indoors, for God's sake, get off the streets. If you're not inside, lock your doors and windows up tight. Civil defense officials in Cumberland, Maryland have told newsmen that murder victims show signs of having been partially devoured.
Consistent reports from witnesses to the affected people who acted as though they were in a kind of trance or killing and eating their victims prompted authorities to examine the bodies of some of the victims, who looked as though they have been torn apart. Medical authorities in Cumberland have concluded that in all cases, the killers are eating the flesh of the people they have murdered. repeating the latest bulletin that we have just received moments ago from Cumberland, Maryland. Civil defense authorities have told newsmen that murder victims show evidence of having been partially devoured by their murderers. Medical examinations of victims' bodies show conclusively that the killers are eating the flesh of the people they kill. And so the incredible story becomes more ghastly with each report. It's difficult to imagine such a thing actually happening, but these and other reports that we've been receiving and passing on to you, reports which have been verified as completely as is possible during this confused situation, confirm that it is happening, and would appear that no one is safe from this wave of misery.
Hola y bienvenidos a Canal 11, las noticias. ¡Ay de mí! ¡Ay! ¡No me asustan! ¡Los monstruos! ¡Ah!
They ought to make the day of the time change the first day of summer.
What?
Well, it's 8 o'clock and it's still light.
A lot of good the extra daylight does us. We still have a 3-hour drive back. We're not going to be home till after midnight.
Well, if it really bugged you, Johnny, you wouldn't do it.
You think I want to blow a Sunday on a scene like this? You know, I think we're either going to have to move Mother out here or move the grave into Pittsburgh.
She can't make a trip like this.
Oh, tell me she can. Is there any of that candy left?
No.
Look at this thing. We still remember. I don't. You know, I don't even remember what the man looks like.
Johnny, it takes you 5 minutes.
Yeah, 5 minutes to put the wreath on the grave, 6 hours to drive back and forth. Mother wants us to remember, so we trot 200 miles out of the country, and she stays at home.
Well, we're here, John, all right? Now, which row is it in?
Boy, there's someone around here.
Well, it's late. If you'd gotten up early.
Look, I already lost an hour's sleep at the time change.
I think you complain just to hear yourself talk. There it is.
I wonder what happened to the one from last year. Each year we come here and the one from last year is gone.
But the flower's dying. The caretaker or somebody takes him away.
A little spit and polish, clean this up, and sell it again next year. I wonder how many times we've actually bought the same one. Hey, church was this morning, huh? I mean, praying for church, yeah? Come on, Barb.
Well, I haven't seen you in church lately.
Well, there's not much sense in my going to church. Do you remember when we were small, we were out here? It was from right over there. I jumped out at you from behind a tree, and Grandpa got a little excited, and he shook his fist at me, and he said, "Boy, you'll be damned to hell!" Remember that? Right over there. Boy, we used to really be scared here.
Johnny!
Well, you're still afraid.
Stop it now. I mean it!
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Stop it, you're acting like a child.
They're coming for you. Look, here comes one of them now.
He'll hear you.
Here he comes now. I'm getting out of here.
Wave of murder, which is sweeping the eastern third of the nation, is being committed by creatures who feast upon the flesh of their victims. First eyewitness accounts of this grisly development came from people who were understandably frightened and almost incoherent. Officials and newsmen at first discounted those witnesses' descriptions as being beyond belief. However, the reports persisted. Medical examinations of some of the victims bore out the fact that they had been partially devoured. I think we have some late word just arriving.
We interrupt to bring you this. This is the latest disclosure in a report from the National Defense Headquarters in Washington. It has been established that persons who have recently died have been returning to life and committing acts of murder. A widespread investigation of reports from funeral homes, morgues, and hospitals has concluded that the unburied dead are coming back to life and seeking human victims. It's hard for us to believe what we're reporting to you, but it does seem to be a fact. When this emergency first began, radio and television were advising people to stay indoors, behind locked doors, for safety. Well, now that the situation has changed, and we're able to report a definite course of action for you, civil defense machinery has been organized to provide rescue stations with food, shelter, medical treatment, and protection by armed National Guardsmen. Stay tuned to the broadcasting stations in your local area for this list of rescue stations. This list will be repeated throughout our news coverage. Look for the name of the rescue station nearest you and make your way to that location as soon as possible. In connection, an emergency meeting was called this afternoon by the President. Since convening, this conference by the Presidential Cabinet, the FBI, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and the CIA has not produced any public information.
Why are space experts being consulted about this earthbound emergency? So far, all the betting on the answers to that question centers on the recent Explorer satellite shot to Venus. That satellite, you'll recall, stayed to Earth but never got here. That's the space vehicle which orbited Venus and was purposely destroyed by the NASA when scientists discovered it was carrying mysterious high-level radiation be somehow responsible for this wholesome murders we are now suffering.
Dr. Grimes, your entire staff, I know, has been working very hard to find some solution to these things that are happening. Do you have any answers at this time?
Yes, we have some answers. But let me stress the importance. If you have been hurt in any way, you need to get to a doctor immediately. We don't really know what can happen with this stuff.
Is there a connection between the radiation from the Venus probe and the recent epidemic of murder?
Yeah, well, the Venus probe did carry an unusual amount of radiation. It certainly can cause mutations. I'll tell you one thing. At the university, we had a cadaver, and its arms, its legs, everything were off. And, suddenly it started moving again. All I know is if anything's dead, it needs to be taken care of immediately. Cremation is most likely the best way to do it.
Well, how long after death, then, can the body become reactivated?
We don't know for sure. It could be a matter of minutes. It could be hours, minutes, days. We have no idea.
Minutes? Well, that doesn't give people time to make arrangements.
Arrangements? Are you kidding me? These bodies need to be burned. You should take them out of the streets, throw them in gasoline, soak them, burn them, light it on fire. We've got a problem here. You need to burn them. I don't care. They should worry about their funeral. That's the deal. Burn those bodies.